Okay, moving on to question 7. Question 7 says if each lion within a pride requires an average of 13,500 kilocalories of energy to survive, how many lions can survive on one zebra? So we're saying 13,500 is the average for each lion, whether it's a male or a female or a cub. Don't forget to factor in the energy that it takes to hunt. So first of all, I'm going to look at the total amount of energy that's available in a zebra, and that is 170,000 kilocalories. Now, the lions don't get all of that energy because it costs 55,000 kilocalories to hunt it. So if I subtract that, that gives me 115,000 kilocalories that's left in the zebra after we spend the energy to hunt it. So if each lion requires 13,500 kilocalories, how many total lions can we feed? Whoops, wrong button. Let's try. There, that's what I Sorry, my equals button is underneath my face. There we go. 8.5. So I can feed 8 total lions and then half of another lion. But if I only give that other lion half of the energy that it needs, it's not going to survive. So how many total lions can we feed? Well, we can feed 8 lions. Okay, this next question says, which trophic level contains the most energy, kilocalories? Well, all of the energy that we have always comes from the bottom level. So the answer is producers. If you weren't quite sure about that, and it was something that you didn't remember, you could always kind of work out the math. It might have been confusing for you to see so many arrows going in to the decomposers, so maybe you thought it had the most energy. But let's say if you just did a quick math problem and you estimated that there were 1,000 kilocalories in the producers, and 100 here, and 10 here, and 1 here. If you knew that only 10% moves levels, then that would tell you only 0.1 is going to the decomposers. 1 calorie, 10 calories, 100 calories. So if you add it up, 100 plus 10 plus 1 plus 0, that's 111.1, which is not near as much as the 1,000 that's down here on the bottom. So it's always your producers. Question 9 just asked me about this trophic level pyramid here, this energy pyramid. And it says there are 10 million kilocalories of energy available at the producer level. So that's down here at the bottom. How much energy is available for the apex predators? So that would be my sharks. And I know that only 10% of my energy goes from one level up to another. So if this is 10 million, divide by 10, this would be 1 million. 100,000, 10,000, 1,000. So there would be 1,000 kilocalories that would be available to my shark. Question 10 says, in the Chesapeake Bay food web, the bivalves would be considered blank. Okay, so there was a lot of concern that you didn't know what a bivalve was. And that's okay. You don't have to know what a bivalve is to be able to answer the question. The question is about, number 1, can you read a food web? And number 2, do you know what the trophic levels are, so that you can determine what the bivalves are. So if you look at your food web, here are my bivalves. And I'm going to look at the arrows that are going into the bivalves. So remember, the arrows go, it's like it's going into the mouth of the organism. So if I look at what bivalves eat, I have 2 arrows here, right? So I'm going to go back here. And it looks like bivalves eat zooplankton. And contrary to popular belief, zooplankton do not eat Krabby Patties because they are herbivores. So I know that a zooplankton is an herbivore. And I follow my other arrow down, and it goes to phytoplankton, and it says that phytoplankton are primary producers. So I know that bivalves eat producers, which are plants, and herbivores, which are animals. So if I have an organism that eats plants and animals, I know that it's an omnivore. Question 11 is going to ask you about the manatee, the karyotype of this manatee. So it says the following karyotype is from a manatee. How many chromosomes did the manatee inherit from its father? So I'm going to look at the total number of chromosomes that the manatee has, and I know that half of them came from mom and half of them came from dad, because those are my only possibilities, right? So this manatee has 24 pairs of chromosomes. So here's your 23rd pair, here's your 24th pair. So if it has 24 pairs, just like if you had 24 pairs of shoes, how many shoes is that? That's going to be 48. And I know that half of that 48 came from dad, and half of 48 is 24. So my answer is 24. The next question still is talking about the karyotype from this manatee, and it asks you, what is the biological sex of the manatee? So for you to determine biological sex, you go down here to the sex chromosomes, and you see that this manatee has an X chromosome and a Y chromosome, so that means that it is biologically male. The next question says, this digestive system likely belongs to a what? What kind of animal? Well, what I'm looking at here is I'm looking at the cecum. So this animal, it has a huge cecum compared to the size of some of the rest of its digestive system. And animals that have giant cecums have to use these big cecums to break down plant matter. So that means that this guy is an herbivore. This question asks about the dentition of the skull. So study the dentition of the skull and predict which type of heterotroph it belongs to. So I'm going to look at what kind of teeth I find in this skull. My incisors are really small compared to great big canines. And I have a little bit of premolars, and then I do have molars in the back. So this animal has large canines, which we know canines are used for ripping and tearing flesh. So we know that this animal eats meat. And then all animals, whether they eat meat or plant matter, have molars because the molars are just used to break that food into smaller pieces. So we know that this eats meat, but it doesn't have big incisors, so it likely doesn't eat plant matter. So we're going to say that it is the carnivore. This question right here is straight off of your Quizlet. Basically, it was just, do you know what elements are in the biomolecules? So, carbohydrates are CHO, lipids are CHO, proteins are CHON, nucleic acids are CHO. CHO, CHO, CHON, CHON. This question asked you about your animal nutrition lab, and the pictures that you're seeing here are pictures that I took actually from lab results that you guys got, and these are the same pictures that are posted on the assignment on your animal nutrition lab. So let's go over those one at a time. It says interpret the following lab results for the sample on the left. So that's going to be sample A in this case. Select the macromolecules that the sample is positive for. Okay, so this first one right here, the brown paper bag test, is my lipids test. And a positive lipids test is this kind of clear oily spot right here. So it looks like A is positive for lipids. So I'm going to come down here and I'm going to check my lipids. Now this next one right here, I am looking at the color of the fluid, the solution that's on top of my food. And so I have two options for my protein test. I can either have a blue color, which is going to be negative, or I can have kind of a grayish light purple color, which is going to be positive. So if you want to blow this up on your screen, you're more than welcome to. Any of the pictures you can always enlarge. But this color around here is much more of that grayish purple than that pretty bright turquoise color. So that is going to be positive for proteins. This next one here is asking for the starch. Is it positive or is it negative? And remember, a dark color like a blackish color or a purplish color, rather than a kind of a pale yellowish brown, is going to be positive. So this one is positive also. It's positive for starch. And then last is my sugar test. So when you put in the solution originally is kind of this kind of pale bluish green color. And if it turns dark green, orange, or red, that is a positive. So this one here is positive. The one on the right is positive, but the one on the left is not. So this is negative for sugar. So that's my answer for this one right here. And then lastly, this one just asks you about the macromolecules. It asks you about the little units, the monomers that make it up, and it asks you about the function. So I'm going to start right here. The monomer is amino acids. That's going to be proteins. Long-term energy storage and insulation. Insulation would be like fat. That's lipids. Function is storage of genetic material. Genetic material is nucleic acids like DNA and RNA. Function is building muscle. Some are enzymes or are part of the cell membrane. That is also proteins here. Function is quick energy. Quick energy like if you are an athlete and you're going to carb load before you go run. Carbohydrates. The monomer, the little piece that makes it up, is triglycerides, that's lipids. The monomer is nucleotides, that's nucleic acids. And lastly, the monomer is glucose. Glucose is carbohydrates. And that is it. We're done with the test.